Okay, guys, welcome along. Coach Daryl here with Coach Sarah. Welcome along to another instalment of Wednesday's guest speaker. Today, we are joined with Liz Sharpe from Live Your Life Therapies. How you doing, Liz?
All good, thank you, Daryl. All good.
Excellent. So Liz is a local therapist, and we thought it'd be really good for you guys to maybe get some information from her. I won't spoil the topic. I'll let her introduce herself and obviously what she's going to talk about. So Liz, let's dive straight in. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a local hypnotherapist and counsellor, and my specialism niche is helping people look at their relationship with alcohol. So when lockdown happened and France said that we've got to keep our chocolate shops and America said you've got to keep your gun laws, we said we've got to keep our off licences. And you can hear the clanging of the red bags. You can hear the clanging of the red bags every Tuesday and Wednesday as everyone absolutely hit the off licences and supermarkets going, oh my God, can I still get my wine and beer and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I help people look at their relationship with alcohol, really. Not from sort of a you must stop drinking sort of thing, just about, is it working for you, is it helping you, and is it what you want? So yeah, that's me.
Awesome.
I mean, I can speak from personally about this, and I don't know if Sarah would say the same thing, but throughout lockdown, obviously we've been working less, and we're doing maybe a quarter or maybe even less of the work, and the sun's been shining. Them two things for me equal, oh, well, I have a beer tonight, even though we say to our clients, maybe don't drink so much. And I think most people may be in a similar scenario. So hopefully the information you're going to give us today will actually help us as trainers, but also help our clients as well. How do you feel about that?
It almost feels like you're on holiday, doesn't it? It feels like that you should be in the garden having a barbecue every single day. That is that kind of mentality, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it's fantastic. We've had such good weather. And it is along the lines of, yeah, well, I can have a quick beer now, or I'm not working, or as soon as I finish work, then I'll open a beer, or I haven't got to drive the kids to judo, so it's okay, I can have a drink, and all of that sort of stuff. But I guess we're coming, I think, what is it now, day 66 of lockdown. So congratulations to everyone for day 66. We've survived. We're here in one piece. But it could be going on for quite a long longer before, you know, we're not going up to the city to work. We're not doing the things we would like to do. God knows when pubs will open, all that sort of thing. So it's just about, do you want to continue doing what you're doing with alcohol, or is it about now time just to rein it back in? So what I'm doing is just telling people a bit about units and what exactly is a unit, because actually not many people know. A bit about alcohol, where it's come from, and then just giving some easy ideas that if you wanted to cut back your booze levels this lockdown or for the next couple of months, then things you could do for yourself. So yeah, so that's where I'm coming from.
That's right.
And some of it will tie in with what you're doing with your members in terms of motivation. So it's that urge to do 10 press ups, it's the urge to make a difference, and it's about seeing yourself in the future, yeah, just doing things a bit different. So so just a quick overview, just in case your members don't know or you guys don't know, in terms of a unit, they talk about units of alcohol because it's a kind of a universal measure. So we all know what a unit is or how much it is. We know how long it is, how strong it is. So if you look on the side of a wine bottle is 9 or 12 units, depending on if it's white or red and the strength. A pint of a lager is 2.2 units. A shot of alcohol is a unit. And then when you're at home, you might be a bit heavy or heavy-handed on the elbow, so you might be pouring 3 or 4 units into your glass. So that's kind of how much alcohol you're getting in. Every unit of alcohol you have takes roughly an hour to get out of your system. So if you have a bottle of wine starting at 9 at night, then 6 in the morning before it's out of your system. And that's, you know, if you're driving to the station, it's always worth thinking about that sort of stuff. And the government reckon that you shouldn't have more than 14 units over the course of a week. And that's not the binge drinking, that's not knocking the load back on a Friday night, but sort of spreading it over. And that just keeps you having good health and good well-being and that sort of stuff. So that's the quick overview, if that all makes sense, yeah?
Yeah, that's cool, yeah.
So in terms of the first thing, if you're going to look at your alcohol relationship and what you're doing with alcohol, your first thing is to think about what you're actually drinking. Because again, a bit like I was saying with the heavy elbow when you're pouring a gin, unless you know actually how many units you're putting in, you don't know what you're drinking, when you're drinking, and how you're drinking. So I'd recommend first tip is to just keep a note on your phone. Doesn't mean you have to change your behaviour, but just every time you have a drink, just make a note of it and then see how much the units stack up to by the end of the week. So as an alcohol coach, particularly working with people who might be up in the city, they could be at 60, 70 units without even thinking about it.
Wow.
Because it's the maybe a few beers after work, or it's coming home, having a bottle of wine with your takeaway, sharing a bottle, going out for an evening, and that sort of thing. And it's actually quite easy to stack up your units, and yeah, without even realising. So certainly not many people necessarily do the 14, 21 units, or they don't come and see me if they're doing the 14, 21. So your first thing, my first tip is about seeing what you're drinking, when you're drinking, and why you're drinking. But first of all, also look at the emotions underneath it. So lockdown happened and lots of people then went, I just need a drink because I'm really stressed, or I'm homeschooling, or I'm worried about my job, and it just takes away the pressure, takes away anxiety and depression, and it kind of just numbs your emotions, or maybe gives you a bit of a boost or whatever. So looking at the emotions underneath is really important. If you're just drinking for fun, fantastic. But if you're drinking because you're feeling anxious and it's to get rid of that, or feeling depressed, then you might want to do something different about that instead, rather than holding on to those reasons, because again, it stacks up if we're day 65 and it's going on. So my second tip is, once you know what you're drinking, decide what you want. So if you speak to your members and they go, well, I'm going to try and be a bit fitter this week, that's not telling your brain anything. So I'm sure you guys work with them going, well, I'm going to do 10 press-ups, whatever number, 10 press-ups every day. And your brain then gets the message about what it is you're aiming for. Because if you just put a random thing in there, then your brain doesn't know what it's aiming at. So if you were going to say, I'm going to try and drink less, what does that mean? Is that less water? Is that less anything? Less than what? But if you're doing the whole SMART targets about, I'm going to have 3 alcohol-free days this week, and it's going to be a Monday, Tuesday, and a Wednesday, then you've got an idea of what you're aiming at. Or once I've had 3 drinks, I'm not going to have any more. So that's kind of the next one to think about. In terms of also looking at your drinks cupboard. So if you think about your bottle of ouzo that you got from Greece when you were 19, anyone admit to any any dodgy tequilas and all the rest of it that you've never drunk in your cupboards?
Yeah, a couple.
What you got there? What you bought? What do you think of?
Oh, I normally have blue Krakow, blue curacao, but it's called Krakow. Yeah, that you put in the blue pies. That normally lurks around the back of my cupboard somewhere.
What's it? I can't even imagine what it tastes like now. I think I had that last time I was about 19.
No, I can't remember what it really tastes like either now. No, I don't know. I'll let you know if I find out in a couple of weeks.
I remember it gives you a blue tongue. Yeah. I don't remember that much, but
it is.
What about you, Darryl? What you were owning up to might having in the back of your cupboard, or were you quite healthy?
I'll tell you what, I couldn't even tell you, because it's one of the things where you get, even though we're in the health and fitness industry, we do get clients giving us bottles of whatever, insert drink here, that we might have said we liked ages ago. And obviously we're not angels, we do drink, but yeah, I've definitely got bottles where they haven't seen the light of day. They've come from our old house to our new house, and they'll probably go on in 10 years time as well. That's the thing, I'm sure everyone's got a cupboard full of stuff there they don't even recognise, they can't even pronounce.
Yeah, absolutely. So what you might have done, some people did at the start of lockdown, was make quarantinis, which is where you're trying the really rank alcohol that's at the back of the cupboard and you're mixing it all together in your cocktail style. So that's where some of those dodgy mixes got seen to the light of day. I know I always used to bring home the bottle of ouzo would always come and eventually get chugged out again, because I hated that in England. What's the Spanish one? There's a Spanish one as well that, no. So my tip is also to then look through your alcohol cupboard. if you're never going to open it, if it's just gathering dust, then actually just chuck it out, stick it in your recycling, and make some space for some of the newer mocktail stuff that's out there. So if you hang around those aisles, you'll find much nicer tasting stuff, and giving your taste buds a bit of a chance to kind of enjoy what you're drinking, rather than just the only option being tea, coffee, water, or alcohol, which some houses will have. So yeah.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah.
And then looking also at what you can drink. So if you're having it as a spritzer, if you're starting later, finishing earlier, and all of that sort of stuff. And naturally, it will just cut out some of the units that you're putting in yourself, which then leaves you feeling a bit healthier.
Oh, I see. So perhaps instead of having like a glass of wine, top it up, half the glass of wine, and top it up with some soda water, and have like the spritzer.
Yeah.
You've still got your drink, but you've half the alcohol sort of amount.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I was reading recently about some of the dangers. You might know this in terms of people that are drunk or had a load to drink and then sort of do a load of exercise the next day. It's still in the system because alcohol's a dehydrator anyway. The sort of pressure that can put on your body. So making sure all the alcohol's out of your system, you've got enough water in you.
Pint of water before you go to bed.
Yeah, pretty much. So there are just some really quick tips.
Okay. I've got a question. When I think one of the things that people don't perhaps quite realise is when it actually becomes a bit of an issue with alcohol, and like where that line sort of sits, because like I said, at the moment nobody's going to work. I mean, I'm working from home today, so quite feasibly, and I just like to say I haven't done this, I could sit here with a gin and tonic at my desk whilst I'm doing my normal day job, where I wouldn't normally do that. And that kind of, I don't know, I think it's kind of becoming a bit more normal to do things like that. But that, like you said, with the units, isn't actually very healthy, and it's not a very good habit for me for anyone to have got into. I haven't done it, by the way. I'll just make that very so when does it start to become a bit of an issue, alcohol consumption for people? Is it like a very personal thing when people perhaps feel like they have to have a drink every day, or can they have to have a drink every day but still not have an issue? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it becomes an issue when the person realises it becomes an issue, and for everyone it's different. So I've done, when I was training as an alcohol coach, a guy who must be in his 70s came along, and he was along the lines of, I drink about 3 pints a week. When he was being sort of screened, they were saying, well, that's not really a problem. And he was like, well, actually, my wife is having a go at me all the time, and it's just constantly becoming a problem, because she's like, you must have a drinking problem if you can't do Friday night without a drink. And so it is about the perception. In terms of it, I suppose if you were to think about the triggers that you can get into. So for instance, Friday night, 5 o'clock, finish the end of the week. My ritual, somebody's ritual, is to have a bottle of wine, have a drink of wine, because it's the kind of the set point, the set trigger when you do that sort of thing. And if somebody then said to you, okay, we can't do that this Friday, because what you've got to do is you've got to go and drive the kids to judo. If that created quite a lot of stress for you, then it'd be worth thinking about the sort of issue, the relationship you've got going on. Or if your friend announced, you know what, I've just stopped drinking, would you still necessarily see your friend as much? Or would you go, actually, no, I'm still going to continue going to the same pubs, and actually it'd be harder to find the relationship with your friend again. If you hit a stressful situation and you find yourself turning to a drink to be able to cope with it, which all it's doing is numbing it, then it's worth thinking about that. So it's about when you're using it and why you're using it.
Okay.
If you thought about doing dry January or go sober for October, and that whole idea fills you with dread because you can't quite see how you do it, then just checking out whether or not you've got the healthiest of relationships with alcohol is worth doing. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that does. Yeah.
I think it's a society thing. I think it's a British thing, isn't it? Like, not just, I mean, it's stereotypical, but people say like the French have a glass of wine with dinner, you know, and they can stop there. Whereas generally, our society, every situation, good and bad, there's alcohol, but a lot of alcohol around it as well. So it's like, obviously it's understandable why a lot of people do have an issue with alcohol. And it's very, I can see it's very easily done.
Yeah, they say that our alcohol levels as a society increased rapidly when Channel Tunnel opened, because when we started getting the French influence as well. So in England, it was a case of, I don't know, the blokes would go down the pub on a Sunday afternoon. The pub hours would shut at 10 or whatever it was, not be open in the afternoons and all that sort of thing. And all of our drinking was more done in that sort of setting. We then started copying the French and having a glass of wine with dinner as well. But what we didn't do was change our own habits and stop doing what we were doing. So instead of just having the pints, then actually what we're doing is having the pints and the wine. And then rapidly increasing it more and more into lifestyle, really.
Like collecting other countries.
In other countries, rather than letting go.
Yeah, just add to us.
I think the other thing as well, where people don't realise, is there is obviously some alcohol, but there's so many calories in a pint of beer. There's a lot of calories in it, and the whole thing of empty calories as well. Obviously, not every calorie is the same, but if you have a full dinner and then you drink on top of that, that's added calories. And if people are, maybe their goal is to lose weight, then alcohol calories can be a big part of that, and that's something that a lot of people don't actually realise.
The body will naturally try and burn off the alcohol calories first because they're empty calories. So what it's doing is it's leaving the calories in your body that's related to the fats and all the stuff that you're doing your sit-ups for. So yeah, that's where it goes. If you're drinking, that's where your body's trying to work on.
Yeah, and then you've always got that thing as well, haven't you? If you've had a drink, that it's the carbs afterwards. You always want the carbs. You're out on a night out, it's always, isn't it? That's why everyone stops off at the kebab shop on the way home, isn't it? Have a kebab and some chips or something like that. And then the next day, I mean, how do people say like, oh, well, what to do today is eat stodge. I just want like stodge, like bad food. Just so yeah, that obviously that doesn't help the day after.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, I mean, it's having a huge knock-on effect with all of it. So your sleeping pattern's a lot worse because you're not getting the quality REM sleep, so therefore you're waking up feeling more tired the next day. You need the sugar boosted chocolate to give you the energy to get through the day. Your whole system's been knocked out of shape. So
yeah. And you did just mention as well, Liz, about like people can drink when they're feeling a bit stressed or a bit depressed. Like alcohol is actually a sort of depressant, isn't it? So what sort of things do you sort of see with people with that?
So I talk to people about, if you imagine your central nervous system bounces along between a 4 and a 7. So 10 being very high, 0 being nothing, very low and depressed. So it's quite normal for us to go like that. Alcohol is a depressant, so it brings us down. So that kind of numbs our emotions, numbs our feelings. The next day when it's out of the system, the chances are you will start feeling more anxious because it will bounce back up into the high bits again. So yeah, it sort of numbs your emotions and leaves you feeling more anxious, more stressed, more depressed. If you haven't got if you're constantly waking up feeling a bit cloudy head, foggy, then your resilience to deal with situations as well. So therefore you're dealing with a stressful day, feeling even more stressed because you're not at your optimum. So
I remember having that discussion with one of my friends. She would always say that after she'd been out the weekend, she would find Sunday she wasn't too bad, but by Monday she felt really anxious, and she felt horrible, like for a day or two. And we called it the alcohol horrors, because it was literally the day after you were too hungover to worry about anything, and then the day after that was when the anxiety sort of came in for like no reason. You didn't feel like there was any reason. You didn't particularly think you had anything to be anxious about, but it actually made you feel quite horrible.
Yeah, and if it's being used as well to mask what you're feeling and what you're stressing about, and then you can go, oh, it's not a problem anymore, and you start laughing it off. Yeah, you're waking up the next day with the horrors, feeling more stressed, more anxious, and the problem is still there. And we've all done it. You know, we've all had a drink when we've had a bad day. But again, if you're constantly having a drink to cope with a bad day, you're in a bit of a cycle, which makes it a bit harder to cope with. And then people, so I see people, for instance, they might be drinking more because they're grieving, or because they're also having it as a reward. So had some good news, having extra drinks for that.
Yeah, of course.
You can always find a drink to have a reason to have a drink. But if it's becoming your only thing about looking for a reason, then again, look at your relationship with alcohol. Makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does.
Is it, Liz, is it quite common that people you see, how long would you say they go until they realise they actually do have a problem? Is it a lot of denial going on there?
I think we never know what we don't know. And sometimes it is a case of, once you start to think, oh, this is a bit of a problem, the genie's out of the box. You don't kind of unknow that fact. I think where people, for instance, might not realise that they're not very nice when they've had too much to drink. You get the kind of the angry drunks or the aggressive drunks. So again, it's about the bottling up of feelings and the impact it has on people around you. So I would imagine there's people in lockdown now that have struggled because they're living with somebody that maybe drinks more than they would like, and they're not the best of people to live with when they've had too much to drink. So I'd imagine that's happening in quite a lot of households now. So,
yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And so what's one of the things like if somebody's feeling like they have an unhealthy relationship with alcohol, what are the sort of steps to start taking to I don't know if address that is the right word, or to deal with that, or to start managing? What would be the steps that you would suggest somebody would take?
So making a note of what you're drinking, why you're drinking, and when you're drinking, to understand it. So then you know what's making you turn to having an extra drink, and then you might be able to do something about the root cause. So if it's along the lines of I don't know, commuting up to London, hating your job, and then that's how you're switching off at the end of the day, then doing something about that will stop you wanting to switch off at the end of the day. So kind of just having a thought about it. For me, I do a sort of power session where it's about just helping somebody talk about alcohol in kind of a grounded, down-to-earth sort of session, looking at what's going on, then set some strategies for change. So sometimes it's just a habit. You've just got into the habit of a Friday night drink, and that's all it is just about changing that habit. Another time it's about looking at it a bit more. But the whole strategy is around, for instance, even measuring out how many units you're putting into your glass if it's a spirit, so that you can still have your quadruple, but know that you're putting it into the glass. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Making sure that you don't have your wine bottle next to you all the time, but actually you've got to walk for it. Having a glass of water there as well. So if you're thirsty, in case you're drinking quicker because you're dehydrated, which I think most of us spend most of our time in dehydration. So that makes sense as well. So.
Excellent.
And I suppose just in terms of what somebody do is also not be sort of scared by the fact that if you're drinking too much, because you can do something about it. Don't necessarily worry about the whole labelling thing, but just decide if it's a lifestyle thing that you want to continue, or whether you're going to want to make changes for it. So,
yeah, that makes sense.
Are you going to spring out of lockdown or stumble out of lockdown? Probably that idea.
I keep seeing them memes, I never say it properly, where they're saying about when pubs reopen, they're going to have to sort their measures because they're going to be much weaker than what people have been pouring for themselves. Because they have
absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and also when the pubs do open, I honestly think it's going to be mad. They're going to be overrun because everyone's going to want to go back to the pub. So hopefully they'll do kind of a slow release. Somehow they can maybe do that. They go open beer gardens first and not just open the doors, because it might just be a crazy few weekends, especially if the sun's out, obviously.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a busy one, unless they've got a lot of garden space to be able to juggle the social distancing. A few drinks in, not being able to stand in a straight line, let alone keep your distance.
Everyone wants to hug everyone, don't they? When they've had a ball, most people. No fun. Sending someone hug. I've had a drink. Oh, brilliant.
Well, Liz, thanks for that. I really appreciate it. Obviously,
No worries.
we've got a lot out of it, and I'm sure our members will too. Do you want to just tell us about where our members can find you, about where you are online?
Yeah, sure. So my practice is Live Your Life Therapies. If the office was open, it would be in Westcliff, opposite Halfords, in down London Road. But yeah, I work online now, so look me up, Live Your Life Therapies. So, yeah.
Are you on Facebook and Instagram, Liz?
Yeah, on Facebook and Instagram. I've got a series of blogs coming out about living with alcohol, cutting units, or living with alcoholic and all that sort of stuff. So they can look out for those as well. And I've got a free download that you can do. So I'll give you the link, and then if you want to share that, you can do.
That'd be great.
But 9 ways to drink less in lockdown. So yeah. So, yeah.
Excellent. Good. Well, really appreciate it, Liz. Thanks for giving us your
time. Yeah, nice to chat to you both.
Yeah, nice to see you.
Brilliant. Excellent. Thanks again, Liz.
All right, take it easy. See you later.
Thank you.